All right, good. Hey, all right, so I'm Andres. I'm the VP of Customer Development at Meetup, and I'm also one of the co-organizers of this year Meetup group. Now, I love Lean, and I love this community, but I've got a problem, and we've got a problem, and that problem is the pivot. That problem looks a lot like this. This is my friend Mary. Now, Mary gives me this look every single time the word pivot comes up. Because she rolls her eyes and gives this look, and so do most of my friends. And why is that? Why is that I'm getting all these nasty looks? It's because pivot is one of the most overused, actually misused words in our vocabulary right now. It's amazing. Now, when TechCrunch and the New Yorker are both covering the pivot, this little thing that we're all involved with, that's crazy. And what's crazy about it is, in fact, that it's being relegated. One of the most important concepts here in our whole vocabulary and that we're working with is being relegated to buzzword status right next to gamify and winning and sweeps. And that's got to end, and that's got to end tonight. Who's with me? All right, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so there are official definitions of what pivots are, and I'm not going to go into it because you guys all know what it's about, but what I want to talk about is why I care. Now, I care about this because to me, the pivot represents a fundamental change in how we think about startups in New York City. Now, this might be going on in the Bay Area for a long time, but in New York, this is new, and this is why New York has finally succeeded. And the fact of the matter is that pivots, to me, are all about knowing that you're likely going to fail and jumping in anyways and doing it with the belief that we're going to emerge. Now, I've been involved in tons of startups and tons of projects, and 95% of the time, they fail. Right? So you math was in the house, that's a 5% success rate. Now, I do customer development, so I know that if I work my tail off, I can tamp down that fail rate by doing all kinds of interesting practices. I can get that down to a 90% success rate, which is huge, right? So that's a 2x increase in odds. If I could do that in Vegas, I'd get kicked out of most casinos. But there's a problem here, and what's the problem? It's that you still fail 90% of the time. That's a big, big problem here. Like, we entrepreneurs are wired to do something stupid here. And if you're going to basically fail 90% of the time, you're going to succeed 1 in 10 times, what's the only rational thing you can possibly do? Besides working at Goldman Sachs. You can become a VC and you can work on 10 different companies and sit on their boards and hope that one of the 10 succeeds. Or you can basically jump from startup to startup to startup and hoping that what was that guy named Thor or the Ghostbusters dude arrives right at the right time. But that's not going to happen. And I say, why start from scratch? You don't have enough time. Start with what you know. If you've done the customer development, if you've done the discovery, let's go ahead and use what we know to jump off not from that 95% failure rate. Let's jump off from the 90% rate. That's the only really rational thing to do. And when we pivot, that's where the pivot comes in, is jumping off of the thing we know. We can get 3x response rate, and that feels pretty good, but that's not enough, right? Because we can do that again 2, 3, 4 more times. And when we do, slides catch up. We basically move from going from a 5% success rate to a 25% success rate. 5x. That's huge. Thank you. Now, what is the problem with this picture, though?
7 more pivots, 100% guaranteed success.
No, you're still going to fail 75% of the time. This is what's wrong with us. But the entrepreneurs in the room look at this and they say, wow, 1 in 4 odds. I was willing to take 1 in 10. Where do I sign up? Let me go into it. So if you're going to fail 3 times out of 4, don't begin with what the refrigerator magnets tell you to do and assume you can't fail. Assume you're going to fail. Let's be open about it. Let's be honest. Let's fail. And what would you change right now in the startup you're doing if you assumed you were going to fail? What I think I would do, what I know I would do, is if I'm going to run into a buzzsaw, I want to run into it as quick as I can. Because if the buzzsaw is going to eliminate my business, if it's the fundamental thing that's going to make me fail, I think why most entrepreneurs are stuck in Act 1 is because they're afraid to fail. They're afraid to try the thing that's going to fail. And if you go after the thing that's going to make you fail as early as you can and as often as you can, then you get the 2, 3, 4, maybe 7 tries at bat. I think 7 is excessive. But I say let's overuse the pivot. Let's overuse this concept. Let's take let's talk about it tonight. Let's have 14 presentations about how we pivoted and failed and pivot until our ears bleed from hearing the word pivot too much. And when we do, we will take back the pivot. We will make this city, we will grow the city back. And this is why New York is emerging right now. It's because people are willing to fail. Let's push each other to fail. Let's push each other to pivot. Let's share our failure stories and let's make it happen. It begins now. It begins tonight. It begins with this community. Who's with me?